Hey friend, this is Carissa with Admin Design Hero. Today we will create a brochure in Google Docs. To create the brochure from scratch, open a new doc file, or you can use the final product we come up with here to use as a template. I'll make the link available in the notes. Click on File and then Page Setup to change the page orientation. Now, also in the page setup box, you're going to click the button in front of landscape, then change the margins all from 1 inch to 1/4 of an inch. This is typically the closest to the edge an office printer can print, so we're just going to start off with those as our margins. Google Docs doesn't really have a way to do columns like Word does or some of the other layout programs. So to kind of get around that situation, we're going to insert a 3-column, 1-row table into the page. The table will come in very narrow, and all you need to do is grab the bottom line and drag it to the bottom of the page. Try to get the bottom line as close to 1/4 inch from the bottom as possible. It is difficult with the way the rulers are in Google Docs, but do your best. And the top won't go all the way up to the 1/4 inch mark. I'm not sure why. I played around with it for a while, but it didn't seem worth the fuss. We'll see once we get to the end if it makes a big difference. And, this is an emergency brochure, right? So then I threw in some placeholder text and images so we can mostly focus on how to get things where you want them. So this is kind of more of a skeleton brochure, and then you can fill it in with your content. And then at this point, don't forget to name and save your document, especially if you're using the template, because I'm not sure what it'll do, if it'll just change the template or, hopefully not. Hopefully you can just save the template and fill it in. And so then we're going to start on the front flap. This is the part that'll be the first thing anyone sees. You want to put in a short, catchy title or phrase. Short and sweet is the best because we want to make the title as large as we can and as readable as we can. I'm using Arial at 48 point, which is obviously a very basic font, but you can be more creative on this page with a unique font since it will only be a few words, hopefully, and they'll be large, so it should be fairly readable. But that said, it also needs to be very readable in an instant, or it needs to have a really eye-catching photo or a diagram or infographic. You'll only have a few seconds to get people's attention and to get them to pick up your brochure, and this is the spot you need to be able to do that in. I ended up bolding the title to help it stand out a little bit more, and then I inserted this chicken image, just, because we want to save the chickens or something, and then resize your picture to be as large within those boundaries as you would like. You can pull it off of the side just a little bit, but unfortunately, Google Docs doesn't give you many features or flexibility for images. You can adjust the color and the transparency, but also because we're working within a table, it limits us a bit. Now that we have that, go over to where it says subtitle on that left side, and you're going to want to make that bigger than it is, but not bigger than your main header. This flap on the left side will be the first thing people see when they open the brochure. So you want a little more information, but you also want to kind of pull people along to get them to open the whole thing and read it. So again, like a striking infographic or image or something that people will get interested in to open up the whole thing. And here's how you add a graph or other graphic. I put the bird and the graph in just to show some options. And if you didn't already know this about the Google Suite, you can connect a Google Sheet to create the graph. I just inserted a basic pie graph, but it's a nice feature that you could enter actual information into your graphs. Okay, so now we're on to the inside of the brochure. This is where you will have the bulk of your information, obviously. The benefits or how someone can help, why they should help, and what you want them to do next, or the action step. And this is a little side note. You can see the paragraphs that I used to fill the space have some kind of Greek text, and it is actually Greek. It's called, or maybe it's Roman. Anyway, it's called lorem ipsum text, and it's common for designers to use this as a filler. Because it's not English, but the words have different sizes, it gives people a good idea what a website, brochure, application, whatever would look like once everything is filled in. But then the added benefit is that people will focus on the design itself instead of the placeholder text if it was in English. So they can make good judgments on whether they like the size of the font or the headings and where they are and stuff without going, well, you misspelled this. So anyway, that's a side note. I'll put a link in the notes for a site that has a story about it, and a place to grab your own if you should ever need that kind of text. All right. So now I'm going to change all the headers on the interior to a similar size and weight, because we're going to create some consistency. Make sure that whatever font you used for your outside headers, your title page and the subtitle, that you're using either the same font or something very similar to create some consistency. And then you change the size and the weight to show kind of the hierarchy of information. On this, you can see on that middle panel, I had initially used a larger font, but it was too big for the long headline on the right. And this is common when you're designing something. When you're deciding on a size for a header, you'll need to test how it looks on the shortest header and the longest before you settle on the perfect in-between one, because it needs to look good on the small length one and on the big length one. So I went with a little bit smaller font in this situation. And then I decided that my lorem ipsum paragraphs were a bit too much information for this brochure, because it gives the whole thing kind of a gray look on the inside, and it's unclear what I want people to know first. So I'm taking a sentence out of the end to create some white space. Don't be afraid to edit. It's just a brochure, and all of the information doesn't have to be there. As long as you have a website or somewhere else the reader can go for more information, just focus on the essentials for convincing them to take the next step. So here, points 1 through 3, where it says benefits 1 through 3, and then the action step, those are all subheads of that top header. So I'm going to start by making them all similar to each other. I kept them at 12 point, which is the same as the paragraph, but I bolded them so it's clear that they are slightly more important than the actual paragraph text. And then I'm also going to change the colors of the headers to add a little more interest, and to also direct the reader as to what to read first. And also, the other thing that this can do is keep like information together, which I'll show you in a bit. On the benefits column, I put that one in green. And then in order to make the benefits easy to read, I made the individual benefits into a bulleted list. So first I added a bullet to the subhead, and then I deleted the return between the subhead and the paragraph so that the paragraph runs right after the benefit. This is one way to do it. You could separate these things out. The thing I like about this is that it keeps the margin under the B. You have a nice clean margin right there. And then the bullet stands out. So it makes it a very clear bulleted list. I decided then that it would help the reader if I use the same color for the different headers and then the subhead in each column so that they know which information goes together. But then I decided I wanted different colors for each column so that they would know, the red column is the point one, this is what we do, the middle is the benefits, and then another color for the action step. So this side also could use an image. I put one in. So the way to do that is just put your cursor in the spot where you want the photo. So I put mine, did a return after the last paragraph under point 3, and then where that cursor is where I'm going to have the photo drop in. So then go to image, upload from computer, and then navigate to your picture. Very similar to other Word type programs. All right, more chickens. They are so pretty and they bring out the red, don't you think? And the green. So anyway, adjust the size of the photo if you need to, or you can change where it's located. Again, this kind of a format, the options that we have in Google Docs are very slim. So don't sweat it too much that it's not like Word where you can pull the photo out and kind of move it within paragraphs. There's not a lot of choices in terms of text wrap and all of that. This is very basic. We're just going to try and do the best that we can with this technology, okay? All right, so then I change the color of the action step panel, and then I'm going to add any information that the reader will need to make the next step, because this is the important thing, right? This is the sell. So I added a web address to a specific place, buythis.com/chicken. If you're unfamiliar with creating links and landing pages, you want to get some help or read up on it for this project and for other projects. You can create a link specific to this brochure on your website so that when someone uses the link or goes to that particular page, you can track how effective this brochure was. So maybe I would set up a page for this chicken, buying a chicken, and anyone who lands there, I know that they came from this brochure because I will use a different link in something else. Even if I'm trying to do the same thing, I might do buythis.com/chickens or chicken01 or something, to be able to track this on the back end. And then make the website name as big as you can. This one is too big, obviously, because it's running off the side of the page. One way you can adjust that is if your link works without the www, take it off and keep the size. Most websites do work that way, but double check that that is true on yours, or that your audience won't be confused, because sometimes older folks are not as familiar with this, but maybe that's not your audience at all, so you don't have to worry about that. So this is it without the www, and then I just added, a paragraph that would be some extra information, or you could put specific contact information there, or a photo, or maybe, I don't know, a thank you or something. So there's lots of ways to handle this page, but it most likely should be your action step, because this is going to be the last page that people will read. All right, so then let's go back to the outside of the brochure, and the address, logo, contact panel is pretty simple. You can add a little information or a photo or a short thank you here. This is almost a throwaway page. In the hierarchy of which panels people look at and in what order, this is the last one. But I will say people are fairly conditioned to look at this spot for your contact information or your logo to find out who's putting out this information. And so it is an important page. It's just not going to be a sales page or an important information page. And then the one last thing we're going to do that will help this look much nicer is to get rid of that outline around the table. So click into the table somewhere and then go to the Format button or the Format drop down, and then to Table, and then Table Properties, which is all the way at the bottom of that flyout menu. And then one way you can do this, there's probably two different ways. You could either change the color of the border to either white or nothing. Maybe I don't remember if it does the actual page color or like 0 color or something like that. Or you can just change the table border to 0 point, which is what I did. Okay, and there you go. You have the start of your brochure. Once you get it the way you want it to look, I would print out some test copies, because if you are going to print it, because you're going to have to fold it, and I'm not really sure how the folds work in the Google Docs. It's definitely not the first program I would use, but in a pinch, you can obviously use it, and it is possible. The next one we're going to do is how to do a brochure in Google Slides, which I think might be a little simpler, may have some more options for us in terms of actually designing the brochure. But like I said, in a pinch, it's possible. So thanks for listening, and you can get more tutorials at admindesignhero.com, and you can also sign up for our newsletter to keep in the loop and to get more information.